So there's circumstances where you may want to consider sourcing your products locally in the US rather than overseas in China. So in this video, I'll show you how you can find US-based suppliers and what the pros and cons are versus sourcing overseas. But first, my name is Crescent, and on my channel I share tips and strategy videos, just like this one, on how you can create a successful Amazon FBA private label business. So if you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing. All right, let's get started. Most people are sourcing products overseas in China using websites like Alibaba, for example, and for the most part, that is your best choice since you can pretty much find any product, have a variety of suppliers to choose from, and they have the ability to customize your product to your specifications. And not to mention, get really competitive prices since manufacturing and labor costs are so much lower than here in North America. However, there are circumstances where sourcing locally here in the US can make sense. For example, a popular topic of discussion right now in the current trade war with China, sourcing in the US or outside of China, for that matter, can avoid having to pay the high tariffs. This is where you'd have to get quotes from Chinese and US manufacturers and compare to see what your best option is. If you're wondering how you can figure out what the potential duties you'd have to pay are, I have a video that goes over this here. Now, when you're looking for a new supplier, there's 3 factors that you want to consider when making a decision: quality, communication, and lead time. Now, I'm not saying that by sourcing overseas you can't get high quality, excellent communication, and lead times. It's just that by sourcing locally, you'll almost always get top-notch quality, communication since English is the native language here, and there's no time zone difference to deal with, and much faster lead times. There's also less risk involved for multiple factors. Since dealing with US suppliers, there's less chance of miscommunication as far as any changes you want done to the product, specific materials or colors you want, or if you encounter any problems, such as with the final product or legal issues, they're much easier to deal with since both parties are in the same country. Beyond that, there are other factors that beginners often don't consider. Some products will require certifications by Amazon, such as FBA or CPC certificates, or even MSDS documents. And unfortunately, some Chinese factories won't have these, or they'll have fake documents, so you get stuck with products that you can't actually sell on Amazon. Dealing with US suppliers, this most likely will not happen since US businesses tend not to operate that way for obvious legal reasons. Speaking of legality, I personally stay away from selling products that have a risk of liability on my part. Pretty much anything that goes in or on your body, like food, supplements, lotions, or creams. If you decide to pursue these types of products, I highly suggest sourcing them in the US so they meet the US standards and requirements, and so that you don't get sued if someone gets hurt due to inferior products, which you might get if you source them from overseas. And lastly, if your product is large or heavy, shipping them overseas can be quite expensive. A good idea is to get some quotes from US manufacturers, and even if the unit costs are higher, the lower shipping costs may offset the total costs versus sourcing the product from China. Okay, so now that you know what the benefits are, what are the drawbacks from sourcing locally? Well, there's really only a few. First is obviously higher costs. Manufacturing and labor are considerably higher stateside, so expect to see higher quotes. What you can do is find a local supplier that you can use as a backup when you're in a pinch, such as if you suddenly need to reorder inventory and your main overseas supplier is unable to fulfill them for you. US manufacturers tend to require higher MOQs too, or minimum order quantities. And individual manufacturers in the US tend to operate more independently, unlike those in China where they're more interconnected with different factories. So specialization or customization that you want done to your products, US manufacturers may not be able to provide that service for you. So keep these factors in mind when looking for a manufacturer. Now, since Alibaba only connects you with overseas manufacturers, how can you find local manufacturers? There's a few websites like Alibaba that you can use. For example, there's ThomasNet, which is at thomasnet.com. And basically you do a search like Alibaba. So let's say we want to look for can openers. Just type in can openers and you'll see a list of suppliers that are stateside. Another great resource is Wholesale Central, and that's at wholesalecentral.com. And again, just like Alibaba, just do a search for your product, in this case, can openers, and it'll also pull up a list of suppliers for can openers that are stateside. Another excellent resource is Makers Row, which is at makersrow.com, and you can just do a search through their database here. However, I found that these websites don't have a thorough database of US-based manufacturers. The best way is actually to use Google and do a search for your product, followed by specific keywords like manufacturer, supplier, lead time, or quote, and see what pops up. So for example, if we jump onto Google and we're gonna look for can openers, we can just type in can opener, followed by manufacturer. And you can look through the search results to see what pops up here for US-based manufacturers or a supplier. Or quote. And similarly with lead time. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. The key is to keep your options open and find the best solution to keep your costs low and your product quality high. Let me know if you source products in the US and what your experience has been like. And if you're wondering how you can find and vet the best overseas suppliers, check out these videos here. All right, thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And make sure you click that bell icon to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. There's also a link in the description below to our community forums, which you should totally join. And as always, thanks for watching.